G'day folks, it's Roger Corbett here.
And it's Dobe here, and you are listening to the Bushwhackers podcast called Stringy Bark.
Hello, how are you doing? Today, Dobe, I thought we'd talk about an old friend of the band, really, and somebody who contributed greatly to our lives and music lives, which was a fella called Trevor Lucas.
Yes.
And my first sort of experience with Trevor was being a mad, during the 70s, Fairport Convention fan.
Oh, weren't
we
he
played,
all?
You know, that Ovation acoustic guitar in Fairport Convention, and really that just sparked my whole love of the entire genre, including coming along and seeing the Bushwhackers and falling in love with this music as well. So Trevor was, he had that sort of gravelly voice, and he was married to Sandy Denny.
Indeed, he was. Right. So, Trevor, for those who aren't familiar, he had his early years playing at folk venues, including the famous Frank Trainer's in Melbourne.
Oh, yes.
So he was one of the instrumental soloists in that early folk movement in Australia, and then decided that he wanted to experience the folk scene overseas. So he moved to England, and the next thing we knew was that he joined Fairport Convention, which was a bit of a surprise, because here he was, an Aussie folkie.
Not one of those Oxford dope-smoking weirdos
no,
over there
not
in
at
England,
all.
yeah.
Not
that was
at all.
Quite the little cult scene, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I actually went over to England in 1975, and I saw Fairport many times, and it was quite the scene there with, you know, all those guys, Richard Thompson and Linda and Sandy Denny and Dave Swarbrick. And I suppose what they really loved about Trevor was he was that kind of open and honest folk singing, songwriting kind of dude, and I think they probably didn't have that.
No, and they didn't have a voice like his either, so he had that deep baritone.
Yeah.
And that was very distinctive. And up until that time, at that time, sort of Dave Swarbrick and Simon Nicol were swapping vocals, and they didn't have something with that gravitas to it.
Yeah, that's true. And it was a very interesting sound form for Fairport, which was full-on, flat-out rock and roll folk extravaganza.
Rock.
It was fantastic,
Yeah.
Fantastic band for its day. If anyone's not listened to, say, Fairport 9 or something like that, that's a classic.
Which was the first album, if I'm not wrong, the first one that featured Trevor.
Oh, was it?
Was Fairport 9. But we loved Fairport when we were in Australia, and when we went to England, we were very, very keen to meet them, and particularly after Trevor joined, although we didn't actually know him at the time. We might have said g'day at a gig somewhere. But we were lucky enough to score an invite to play at the Cambridge Folk Festival, which was the big one at the time, and we were very excited. And you know, it was like all of those folk festivals in a big field somewhere with marquees and dotted around the place. And I can't remember, I think we were late for a gig, and we had bought an old Bedford ambulance, which we all travelled in with the PA and all the instruments and all the gear.
Very safe.
Yeah, and yes, I know. And it had a leak, an exhaust leak. So travelling in the back was a health hazard and no fun whatsoever.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was all we could afford. So anyway, we're driving through the site, and all of a sudden, out of one of the spaces between the tents, somebody walks out in front of the van.
Right.
So we madly swerve, and this voice yells out, "Watch where you're fucking going, you bastards!" And we went, "Oh shit, we've just nearly run over Trevor Lucas." and so we pulled up and apologised profusely. But so that was our introduction to Trevor.
And he was still talking to you.
Absolutely. And we became mates and went and saw a lot of Fairport gigs, as you say you did. And we'd always harboured a hope that Fairport's producer, John Wood, might agree to produce an album for us.
Right.
And so Trevor introduced us to John, and he said, sure. And so he did. So
yeah. And that's Murrumbidgee,
that's
isn't it?
Murrumbidgee, yes, yes.
Very, very good record too.
Yeah, and I know we had a lovely time, and John was fantastic to work with. And then jumping forward, Sandy Denny, Trevor's wife, sadly died. And so Trevor decided to come back to Australia.
And for those of you who've never heard maybe of Sandy Denny, because it is quite a while ago, she was actually voted the number one singer in England at the time, and she was a huge star, and she has a great song called "Who Knows Where the Time Goes."
Yeah.
And that's probably, like her most famous song, I guess. But she certainly was, and there was, back in those days, there was music on television and much more acceptance of, and a real acknowledgement that there was something fantastic was happening in music. And so it was part of the BBC thing, and part of, English television was to have lots of music. I think the transatlantic sessions, and all that sort of stuff as well. But, it was definitely something that England embraced, as watching people playing music and concerts and all those kinds of things.
And don't forget there were those pirate radio stations.
Oh, that's right too.
So I can't remember. What's the name of that movie? You know the one I mean?
Rock the Boat or something?
Yes, I think that's it. With
something like that, yeah.
Bill
Nye?
Yeah,
right, yeah.
But, so Radio Caroline was one of them.
That's right, yeah.
So they were boats anchored outside the territorial limits in the channel.
That's it, yeah.
And the broadcast could reach into England. And, of course, one of the reasons that inspired them was that if you were signed up to a terrestrial-based radio station, you needed to buy a licence.
Right, yeah.
And so part of these pirate radio stations was a rebellion against that happening. But anyway, so as you said, there was a huge music scene going on, and a revival of traditional music but played on modern instruments. So after Fairport came Steel Eye Span, but both of them at the time when they first came to attention, both of them led by female vocalists.
Yeah,
and wonderful female vocalists.
And that whole crew swapped between Fairport and Steel Eye Span quite a lot too, because I think Simon Nicol did stuff with Steel Eye Span as well as with Fairport, and there's heaps of crossover, I guess.
And Martin Carthy.
Martin Carthy was most fantastic, and he did all those albums with Dave Swarbrick from Fairport Convention, as well as, he did some singing things. It was a scene. It was pretty much like the scene here in Australia as these days, So
Trevor came out to Australia, and decided that what he wanted to do was become a producer.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about it previously, but it was time for us to cash in on the bush dance phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to do a dance album, which was basically all the tune sets that we'd put together to accompany the dances. And hot on the heels of that, we did another album called Faces in the Street, which was named for that wonderful poem of Henry Lawson's. And we asked Trevor if he would produce those albums for us. And he did.
Yeah, that's right.
And we had a lovely time.
That's right. And it was, I think I also met Trevor. He was tied up with a country band in Melbourne called Saltbush.
Yeah.
And he was mates with Barry Coburn.
Yes.
And they came out and saw, I had a little band called Banshee at that time. And they came out to see us.
Oh, really?
Very taken with us as well. And but yeah, and then obviously the Barry Coburn story is that he ended up going to America and becoming a famous publisher and manager and so forth. And
Keith
Urban, and it was all part of that story as well. So it was quite amazing. And when we went to Nashville, we went out to Barry Coburn's place and had a very jolly evening with a lot of his friends.
We did indeed.
And clients.
So he married
Jewel
Blanche,
yes,
who was the daughter of Arthur, who was one of the pioneering artists in Australian country music, winner of gold guitars. And she won a gold guitar at a pretty tender age.
Yeah.
And was anointed as the princess of Australian country music, you know. Because she had an angelic face and beautiful golden hair.
Yeah.
And so looked perfect for the role of princess. She'd be in Frozen these days, I suspect. But so she married Barry, much to the consternation of her mother and father, who were hoping for something better than this sort of slightly shady New Zealand promoter.
Yeah.
Anyway, but they moved to Nashville and set up what became the largest independent music publishing company in Nashville.
What was the name of the company?
1010 Music.
1010 Music, that's right.
Which was...
And signed Keith Urban and
yeah.
I think he had Neil Finn and
yes.
had lots of really fabulous people. So
and had a deep relationship with another Australian called Mark Moffat.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
And Mark, going back a step or two, Mark was a member of Saltbush.
Right. There you go.
Who you just mentioned.
Right.
And we knew Saltbush really well because they also had a residency at the Dan O'Connell Hotel.
That's right.
Where we played as well. Yeah. As residents. So we bumped into them all the time.
Yeah.
And Mark, as well as being a very talented guitar player, was also a hell of a producer.
Yep.
And has a history of some notable achievements because he produced the Saints' I'm Stranded.
Oh, right. Okay.
Which is commonly regarded as the first punk recording in the world.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And if you mentioned to any of the pioneers of European, American and or English punk, if you mentioned the Saints and I'm Stranded, they would all bow down and go, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
And he also produced Treaty for Yossi Indi.
Oh, did he? Mark Moffat?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, there you go. Well, Trevor, circling back to Trevor Lucas as well, who produced our dance album and then produced one of our most, I guess it was a critically acclaimed record, Faces in the Street, and it contained quite a few, 3 or 4 Henry Lawson songs that another member of Fairport, all that sort of crowd, Ashley,
Steve
Ashley. He was close to all those folks, wasn't he? And close to that whole scene. And he wrote some music for some of these Henry Lawson poems. And Faces in the Street is a glorious piece of music.
Yeah.
There's also Past Cairn and Australia's on the Wallaby, I think. And not sure what else he did, but yeah. Anyway, that was all on Faces in the Street, on that album. And it was very critically acclaimed from us. And so it is still a really good album to listen to if you want to. It's there on all the streaming services. And Trevor, he was in Australia. He'd stayed in Australia. He remarried, didn't he, Elizabeth?
He did.
And who still remains friends of yours, I believe. And makes pots of marmalade, which I've had.
Oh, yes, yes. She's very, very good at that.
Very good. Yeah. And also then he went on to produce Red Gum and produced I Was Only 19, which is, of course, a massive Australian classic recording and song and all those things
Well,
too.
because at that time we shared a management with Red Gum.
Oh, that's right.
Which is how he got involved through us with them.
So we're responsible, really.
Yeah.
I'll mention that to John Schumann next time.
Do. But,
I remember we did a long tour. We used to do these tours up and down the coast in summertime before we used to go to Tamworth, and we play a gig basically every night for about 6 or 8 weeks because everybody in Australia was on holiday and they'd all go to the coast and stay in their caravans and wherever, and it was just a kind of an Australian tradition before everybody decided they'd rather go to Bali. And
yes.
But
so you'd start on the far south coast of
we'd start at Murrumbidgee and Tarfa and all that.
Yeah. And then you'd slowly but surely work your way up into Queensland along the Pacific Highway and the Bruce.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
and you'd end up at Rocky or maybe even further north, Townsville, Cairns.
Yeah, we did that. We've driven that whole coast probably 2 or 3 times, I would say.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's a new song on our new album called The Hume, the Pacific and the Bruce, which is what those highways were called before it all became the M1 or whatever it is called.
Whatever
now.
it is,
It's not very characterized, but we certainly did that. And all the other rock bands would be either ahead of you or behind you, and you'd have Aussie Crawl a couple of days ahead of you, and Mondo Rock, and Chisel and Midnight Oil and all those bands, and we were just part of that glorious time when you could go and see a fantastic Aussie band.
The pub rock boom.
And people would turn out in their thousands, so it was pretty amazing.
And there were lots of, when I say weird, there was lots of different music because there are other bands around who were different too, like Captain Matchbox.
Oh, right, yeah.
At the time, Captain Matchbox Whoopee Band, which was a sort of a jug band version of the Bushwhackers.
Yeah.
So,
and their lead singer Mick Conway still does lots of shows, turns up at all the folk festivals and all those sort of things. He's still going strong.
And does magic as well.
And magic and tricks, and I think that was always his go, was to be kind of a vaudeville entertainer, really.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
But there was Mother Goose too, and Getting Around and all those sort of bands and in those days. But back to Trevor, he sadly passed away.
He did.
From a aneurysm or something like that, and that ended a pretty glorious career for him. That he'd had a lifetime in music. We did a little tour with Trevor on the anniversary of Sandy's death, I think, and we played all her songs, and that was great memories of doing that too with Trevor, and he'd sing all those great songs that we all loved, and it was sad that his at his funeral I remember being there, and it was quite a moving thing. But yes, great Australian.
And he was a guest on a couple of our Anzac shows. We used to do.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We used to do a major concert.
That's it. Yeah.
On Anzac Day with special guests. So
yeah,
Trevor and Eric Bogle, Red Gum have been guests at some stage as well.
Sure. Yeah. And
the Australian actor John Derham.
That's right. He used to do the Glugs of Gosh and all that sort of stuff.
He did, yeah. and C.J. Dennis's Letter from the Front, which is all about Ginger Mick and a sentimental bloke enlisting in the First World War and going over to save the Empire.
Yeah, that's right.
But, so Trevor's passing was a very sad occasion, but he left a wonderful legacy, including a song that we're still doing to this day, which is Poor Ned, You're Better Off Dead.
That's right, yeah. That's right. He was
which is a great song.
Yeah, and much beloved.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's just a stroll through some of those past times, and that's what this podcast's all about, just sort of going through our history and remembering some folks. I think, is Barry still alive? Barry Coburn?
Oh, yes.
Yes, I think he's still alive. And he'll be happy to know that. And but, yeah, it was an amazing time that, and certainly this podcast is all about remembering those times and just feeling what it was like back then in those days. Anyway.
And before we're so vague that we can't really remember any of them.
That's right. Thanks for listening to Stringy Bark, the Bushwhackers podcast, and we'll see you at the next episode.
See you next time, folks.